No wonder then that one of the sport's biggest names, Northern Ireland's former twoweight world champion, Carl Frampton, has taken the unusual step of reducing the amount of sparring he does to lower the risk of developing problems later in life. However, Chris Eubank Jr., a rising star of the super middleweight division and son of former twoweight world champion Chris Eubank, has questioned Frampton's decision and says he would never consider cutting his sparring regime. "Every fighter is different," Eubank Jr. told CNN Sports' Christina McFarlane. "For me, I believe sparring is the #1 training method to becoming a great fighter, so to cut that training method in half, it doesn't sound positive to me." Risks. The Eubank family knows all about the risks of brain damage associated with boxing. In March 2016, Eubank Jr. beat a fellow British fighter called Nick Blackwell who suffered a bleed on the brain, was placed into a medically induced coma and then forced to retire. Blackwell recovered but suffered a second serious head injury 8 months later and is currently unable to walk. "I'm celebrating. And then I turn around and Nick's on the floor with an oxygen mask on his face and paramedics all around him," Eubank Jr. told CNN in April 2016. "It was a shock. You don't expect that. As a fighter, even if it's tough, you don't expect somebody to go to hospital afterward." Eubank's father famously knocked out Michael Watson in 1991, inflicting near-fatal brain injuries on Watson, who has never fully recovered. After the 2016 Blackwell fight, leading consultant neurosurgeon Peter Hamlin, who operated on Watson, urged the Boxing Board of Control to tell referees to stop fights earlier. "From all the data we have looked at, post-Michael Watson, what we found was that title fights are the high-risk fights," Hamlin told the Daily Telegraph. "By definition, these are the most dangerous fights, and the ones that should be being stopped early. However, sparring is a part and parcel of the job," believes the 28-year-old Eubank Jr., who has said on several occasions that he would never quit in a boxing ring. "Yeah, sparring can be dangerous or painful, but that's something you have to go through as a fighter, to become a champion and to better yourself as a warrior. So, for me, I think sparring should be done, if not every day, then every other day. It should be intense. That's how I've gone throughout my career, but every fighter is different." Father and son. Earlier this year, it was reported that the British and Irish Boxing Authority (BIBA) planned to introduce a portable technology device which can detect signs of head traumas in boxers. However, the BBBOFC told BBC Sport it does not recognize BIBA and would carry on using its own safety policies to protect fighters. Eubank Jr. has lost just one of his 27 professional fights and currently holds the IBO super middleweight world title. His dominant knockout victory over Turkish fighter Avni Yildirim earlier this month has fired him into the semi-finals of the World Boxing Super Series, where he is set to face WBA world champion George Groves. If Groves wins his quarterfinal against Jamie Cox, and most experts predict he will, the All-British Showdown would take place in January and Eubank is convinced he would come out on top. "Me and George have a long history of sparring and training together," Eubank Jr. said. "I'm not going to go into detail, but I know how I performed in those sparring sessions, and that was very early on in my career, and I wasn't half the fighter than that I am now, so I'm very confident in my abilities. I know what he is, who he is as a fighter. I know what he is capable of, and I know I can exploit the weaknesses that he has. It's a huge fight, a fight that boxing fans and the British public have been asking for a number of years now. We have a rivalry, we have a history, and that's a super fight, that's a stadium filler, and that's the type of fight I've been chasing my entire career." Eubank's father is a constant presence by his son's side. The 51-year-old, who is also known as English, is a former WBO middleweight and super middleweight world champion and remains one of the biggest names in British boxing and certainly one of the most eccentric. His flamboyant style, often pictured with a gentleman's cane, behind the wheel of a monster truck, or wearing a fake monocle on reality TV show I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, has also made him a British household name far beyond the boxing ring. "Cringeworthy to me?" Eubank Jr. asks. "No. I am used to him. He's a character, he's eccentric, he does things that aren't orthodox, but, in terms of boxing, you can't have anyone better than that man in your corner. He's one of the most experienced and known figures in boxing in British history, so to have a man like that, with all his experience and advice, it's only a benefit to me and my career."